Hey there, welcome back to the At Home YouTube channel. As always, my name is Joey and today we're in the kitchen making something fantastic. I've been asked multiple times over the years to make a beef Wellington recipe. And so today, that's exactly what we're gonna do. Because every once in a while you gotta whip out something somewhat fancy and slightly elegant to make all your friends happy. And it's always good to actually show people what they wanna see. So, that's one of the best things that we do. Sit back, hit that subscribe button, let's dive right in. So on the counter today, we have a few ingredients and none of this is really going to stand out as anything that we're not already familiar with. So the main star of the show I still have wrapped up here, and this is our beautiful beef tenderloin that we got from Organic Butcher and McLean. These guys always sell fantastic products, so if you get a chance, be sure to check them out. But other than that, I've got 1 egg, 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. I'm going to be using 12 slices of prosciutto di Parma, about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 pound of mushrooms. I've got 2 tablespoons of butter, 3 cloves of garlic, 1 medium shallot, and I've got some fresh thyme picked here. This is about a tablespoon of fresh thyme leaves, and I've got 1 box of standard issue Puff Pastry sheets. And this is really all we're gonna need for the Wellington itself. So let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna start just by putting a little bit of olive oil in here. Let it roll around a little bit and get nice and hot. And then we're gonna go ahead and add in our beef. Now that we have our beef seared on all sides and it looks great on every one of them, we're gonna go ahead and set this aside and move on to the next step. While our beef cools off, we're gonna go ahead and move on to making the beginnings of our Duxelles. We're gonna start by dicing our shallots and garlic and then adding everything into the food processor. So now that we have our shallots and garlic all cut up and ready to go, we're gonna go ahead and grab our food processor and our mushrooms. So as I mentioned, I have about 1 pound of mixed mushrooms here. I chose to use shiitake and a little bit of crimini or button mushrooms. And I'm gonna go ahead and put these right into the food processor. These are just chopped up. There's nothing fancy or special about anything that we've done to them here. Once we get them all in, I'm gonna go ahead and add in the thyme leaves and the shallots. And then I'm just gonna put the lid on and I'm gonna pulse these a few times. So I just want to show you that this is exactly what my mushrooms look like right now. As you can see, everything's kind of came together and it's all in smaller pieces. There are a couple of stragglers in here that are a little bit larger, but everything is nice and fine. And if you feel this, it feels nice and wet, which is exactly why we're going to put it in the pan and cook out most of the moisture because we don't want it to be wet. Back on the stove in a clean pan, I'm going to go ahead and melt my 2 tablespoons of butter, add my mushrooms, and cook these nice and slow over about medium or medium-low heat until we've cooked all the moisture out of the mushrooms. So these mushrooms are going to take quite a while. Don't be surprised if we're looking at 20, maybe even 30 minutes. So we got the moisture coming up, so we know that our goal is being achieved. We're going to move on to our beef tenderloin. Now it's time that we go ahead and get this seasoned up. It's cool enough to the touch that I can handle it, so we know that we're ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my mustard and I'm gonna go ahead and grab my pastry brush. And this is where things really start to get a lot of flavor. I'm just gonna brush on all of this Dijon mustard and try to get this tenderloin nice and coated with it. Now that our tenderloin's nice and coated, I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the refrigerator for at least half an hour. That's the perfect amount of time for our mushrooms to be cooked. So we've been cooking our mushrooms for a while now, and as you can see here, not only am I starting to get some nice color on the bottom of the pan, whenever I rake these mushrooms up, they're starting to be nice and thick, which lets me know that the moisture content has really dropped in this pan quite a bit. I'm going to leave this over here, and I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the bottom of the pan. I'm going to give this just a second to get hot, and then I'm going to go ahead and add the garlic right into it. I'm going to spread the garlic out and let it cook here as well. So now that my garlic's getting nice and toasty, I'm gonna go and stir this in, and then we're totally done with this. I'm gonna go ahead and kill the heat, because this is what we want our duxelle to look like. So you probably can't see this on film, but I have 2 layers of plastic wrap laid down here, and they're about this wide. So I've got plenty of extra plastic wrap because I'd rather lay down a little wider than I need than be short in the end. And now I'm gonna grab my prosciutto and I'm gonna start layering this out, overlapping, so that I form a wide enough area to lay my beef tenderloin on. That is crucial because you absolutely wanna make sure that you get it wide enough. So now I'm going to grab my duxelle and I'm going to bring it back and just divide it pretty evenly and kind of press it around and spread it out. I'm trying to cover this entire surface area. So as you can see here, I spread the mushroom mixture almost all the way to the edge. The closer you can go to every single edge here, the better off we're going to be. We want this to be filled nice and even. So now we're going to go and grab our beef tenderloin that's coated in the mustard. We're going to go ahead and place it right into the middle here, and then we're going to roll it up. So to do that, I'm going to grab my plastic wrap and I'm going to slowly pull it over. And when I do that, I'm just going to pull it back so that the prosciutto sticks to the beef tenderloin and not the plastic wrap. It's okay if it sticks to it later on, but right now we need it to roll perfectly to the beef tenderloin. And once I get that first full circle, I'm going to grab the top of this and pull it backwards to squeeze out any extra space that we have in there, because we want it to be nice and full, but we want to make sure we don't roll up the plastic wrap into this. And once you get to the end, you can go ahead and grab the entire thing and roll it over onto itself, nice and tight. And I'm working my way from the inside out. That way everything's nice and even. And if there's anything extra in the middle, it's going to push it to the outside. Now I'm just going to pinch the ends and hold those tight and just roll this on the countertop. And when I do that, as you can see here, now it's formed like a really nice tight roulade, and you can see these nice beautiful pieces of prosciutto on the outside. I'm going to place this in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes so that all of this gets nice and cold, because as you remember, the duxelle was pretty warm and the prosciutto needs to be cool as well. Do not skip this step. Okay, so we're back and we are ready to get going with wrapping the beef. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my puff pastry sheet and fold this out. If you noticed, I did get the 2-pack. I always buy a puff pastry that is over 1 pound because that lets me know that I've got a better chance at having enough to get my tenderloin completely wrapped. And as you can see here, this sheet is not big enough to wrap our tenderloin, but that's not going to be a problem. So we have our egg that we're going to do the egg wash with. Let's go ahead and beat this until smooth and fluffy. So now that we have our egg beaten nice and smooth, this is going to help us bind all of the dough together here and there wherever we need to. So I've got my rectangle and I'm going to go and grab the other. What I'm going to do here to get going is I'm going to take my pastry brush that we used a moment ago, and I'm going to grab just a little bit of this egg and brush down one seam. Definitely don't do both sides. And this is going to be the seam that we put on the lower side. So now I'm going to take this and overlap it. So as you can see, this is going to make this wide enough that it holds our beef tenderloin. I'm also going to roll this out a little bit so that it's longer, so that I can wrap this all the way around my beef tenderloin. So now as you can see, whenever I set my beef tenderloin down here, it's got plenty of room all around it. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the plastic wrap and get this opened back up. So now that I have my beef down, I'm going to go ahead and brush the other 3 sides. And by that, I mean the ones that are not where the beef is sitting. Now I'm going to simply reach right up underneath my dough here, and it may start to stick to the counter, so be very gentle as you start to roll this up. But this is where this whole thing really comes together. We're going to gently grab the dough and roll it right up with the beef. But again, just like before, it's important that we stay nice and tight. So if you need to, feel free to go ahead and get it started and then back up and pull it tight again. So as you can see, the seam where the dough meets itself, I went ahead and put all the way down, and I'm just going to trim this excess dough right here on the very ends. So I'm gonna go back and make sure that I crimp this dough together on the ends to make sure it gets a nice seal. After that, I'm gonna grab this dough and just fold it right underneath. Again, putting that seam underneath. So over here, I'm gonna do the same exact thing. Now I'm gonna grab this and just gently roll it off of the counter, hold on to it for just a second, and I'm gonna put the tray right underneath it. Again, putting the seam side down and making sure that the ends are tucked under. This is crucial because as this bakes, as it expands a little bit, you wanna make sure it doesn't have the opportunity to open. Now I'm gonna go back with a small sharp knife and I'm just gonna gently score the tops of this. You can do this however you like, but I personally think that a nice little diagonal looks great and it really fits the bill. It lets all that air expand and exit. That way it's not trying to expand it and blow it apart. Now I'm gonna go back with my egg wash and just brush over the entire thing. By now it's crucial that you have your oven preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is optional that you grab some large flake salt. I personally love large flake kosher salt, and I'm gonna go back and just sprinkle this right over the top pretty generously because it's gonna give it a nice crunch and a bit of saltiness. And now we're ready to go into the oven because this is our beef Wellington. I'm gonna rotate this halfway through, but cook it for a total of 30 minutes. Here's the hardest part of making the beef Wellington. It has to sit here for about 10 minutes. You can't go cutting into it right away. So we'll be back in about 10 minutes. So the wait is over and we're gonna go ahead and cut this open and see exactly how it looks on the inside. We have that nice flaky crunch as we start to cut and we can feel the soft beef tenderloin on the inside. So we're gonna cut all the way through. We open this up and we have a beautiful medium rare inside. This looks absolutely fantastic. Let's go ahead and taste this and see what we think. So here's a shot of what I put my beef Wellington with. Bourbon honey carrots, blanched haricot vert, and of course, a mushroom cream sauce, because you just have to. A few garlic butter potatoes, and we're done. And as you imagine, this is fantastic. The rich creaminess of the Duxelles, the rich heartiness of the beef, the slight saltiness of the prosciutto, and the crispy flaky puff pastry, you absolutely can't go wrong with this. All right, well that wraps up on how to make beef Wellington. Comment below and let me know how yours turn out and what you like with yours. Have a great day.